So we're here at Thin Red Line Tactical Studios with Jack and Brooke. And Jack, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So first, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the team for having me on again. I was a fan and a friend of the team before they brought me on, so I really appreciate what they do for the community. My name is Jack Palmeri. I am a 20-year veteran criminal defense attorney. I've been practicing in Florida and New York, state and federal levels. I have an emphasis on Second Amendment rights. I'm a former prosecutor, and I served stint at the Public Defender's Office, and I cover the entire state of Florida, so wherever I'm needed, that's where I go.
Wonderful. And Brooke, a little bit about you.
I started at Thin Red Line about 8 months ago. I just work in sales, but I've been helping out for a while and doing a couple fun things. It's really good to be here to ask some questions.
That's awesome to hear. And I'm Walter, and everybody knows me, so let's just move on from that. Now, you brought some questions for Jack. Why don't you jump right into them?
Well, I just wanted to ask some questions, especially with the election coming up and with practicing gun safety and stuff like that. So my first question is, if Amendment 3 passes, what are some of the effects that could come from that?
And now for everybody out there, Amendment 3 is the adult personal use of marijuana, recreational use in Florida for adults over the age of 21. Go ahead, Jack.
So that's a great first question. I thank you both for bringing it up because it affects a lot of areas beyond the amendment itself. And my biggest concern is going to be the confusion and the abuse of the amendment that may come should it pass. I say should it pass because it's on the bill. We don't know. Let's presume for this discussion that it does pass. What could it mean? And I think people are going to unfortunately conflate the idea that they have a right to recreational use as some more overarching blanket immunity and protection from ancillary issues that come up from almost any activity we have in life. So to try and to make it relatable, I would say I see people coming into issues that they might come into with alcohol. As we all know, currently today, alcohol is illegal. If you're over the age of 21, you can drink legally and you can drive after you've had alcohol, presuming that you are under the legal limit and there is a specified measurement in the books and that has not otherwise impaired your ability to operate a motor vehicle.
Do you think that's going to be a downfall with marijuana not having the same testing as alcohol per se, like not having a breathalyzer, a quick something like, hey, this person was high at this time, not having that type of testing?
I think it's going to be an issue with or without a specific numeric value because people are going to think, well, I'm using it, therefore everything I do after that is also permissible, and that's not the case. I hope people don't forget to use it reasonably and, most importantly, responsibly, and that's where I'm afraid people are going to get themselves in trouble initially. They're going to think, well, I smoked weed legally and I got in the car, which is also legal, and everything I do is fine, except to the point where a law enforcement officer says, well, we saw you swerving erratically on the street, and by the way, you also hit a median, and God forbid something worse. Just like alcohol, which is why I made the parallel, you've now taken something that is initially legal and now used it in an unsafe, unreasonable, and now illegal fashion, and people may overlook that for a while.
Yeah. Jack, wonderful. Thank you so much. Brooke?
Isn't there something about marijuana when you go to purchase a weapon or a gun?
I think she's talking about when Form 4473, it actually asks you, are you an unlawful user or addicted to marijuana or any depressants or narcotics? And then it actually gives you the full warning that the use and possession of marijuana remains unlawful under federal law, regardless if it's legalized or decriminalized for medical or recreational purposes in the state that you reside.
Yeah, so another great topic, and this ties into not just what we were talking about with Amendment 3 and what could happen with the recreational use, but people overlook that this issue that we're talking about applies today with people who get the medical marijuana card. And the issue is the conflict between your rights under the Second Amendment for a firearm and now your privileges, I'll call them, for marijuana use. And my position is, even today in Florida with the medical marijuana cards, the two cannot and do not coexist. It's impossible because one inherently negates the other. With Form 4473 that you just read to it, for you to have a medical marijuana card is all but saying, I use marijuana. And marijuana is still federally illegal and is a prohibition from you legally purchasing a firearm. So the first question becomes, how are you answering the 4473? And is that answer consistent with the rest of your life? Because no one is checking at that moment, but you make it a lot easier to find an inconsistency when you have a medical marijuana card. People overlook that because, much like the marijuana issues on a federal level, no one is currently enforcing the illegality of it, but that does not make it legal.
Yeah, so that was my question with that. So that Form 4473, every time you buy a firearm in the state of Florida, you have to fill that out. But that's a federal form. That is not a state form.
Correct. So the issue is with firearms, the states cannot give you more rights than the federal government does. They can further restrict it, and that's why you see a lot of litigation in states like New York and California, where the states are, in my opinion, overly restricting a U.S. citizen's rights under the Second Amendment, but they cannot give you more rights. So if the federal government is saying you cannot be a medical marijuana user and or a marijuana user and have a firearm, the states can't go and say, yes, you can.
Yeah, you can.
Right. It doesn't work that way on this issue. And that's the rub. So while Florida is saying they have no issue with it, they're not saying the federal government has no issue with it. And the federal government has currently been quiet on it. What I don't like about it as an attorney is everyone is leaving themselves exposed. And so to the extent you think you're going to get both, you would want to get a concealed carry license first, because the concealed carry license asks the same kind of questions about marijuana use.
And the medical marijuana card will not ask about you conceal.
Correct. The medical marijuana cards are not worried about your Second Amendment rights. They're not
Correct.
asking. They're just asking, do you have a medical need for it? And I'm a doctor, and I'm saying medically, you need it. Legally, they have no position on it. And so it's very, if you're looking at it in a very binary fashion, it's very problematic to have a medical marijuana card or be using marijuana and then pursuing your rights under the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
No, please.
No, get it.
So how do you feel about the new Florida law that doesn't require you to have a concealed permit?
So I think initially I don't have an issue with it, because for me, I look at the concealed carry license as more bureaucracy. That's a way for the states to make money, a way for the governments to track us, and I don't think it serves a further end as was intended. I think it's good to have a concealed carry license because if you're in a situation with law enforcement or otherwise, it shows that you are a lawful carrier of a firearm. It shows that you have some basic understanding of a firearm and its use. And so I like it to the extent that it qualifies you in a certain sense.
So when you're talking about rights there, when you're 18, it gains you a whole bunch of rights. Gives you the right to vote, buy cigarettes, porno, lotto. Gets
Get
you a lot of
arrested.
things. Yeah, you can get arrested as an adult. The age of buying a firearm, do you think that should be 21 or older?
It's a good question. It's a great question. And I think it becomes a very subjective question. I'm a father of 2 young children now, and I'm a little bit older. And so the answer I will give you today may not be the same answer I would have given you 20 years ago in my 20s, single with no children. And so I think about what a great responsibility we get to have as owners of firearms. I mean, they're a great privilege, they're a great right, and they're a great responsibility if you're smart about it, because they can be lethal. They can be the difference between life and death for you, your loved ones. This is how countries are won and lost, and it's a great sense of power that you wield. It's a matter of wielding it responsibly. And, you know, any of us at any age can look back when they were younger from that age and things that they thought they knew as well that they didn't know, and things they thought they did as well that they didn't do as well. And just looking at a firearm, even with the polymer-based, they're not inherently light, right? So it's a heavy object, right? And now if you keep around chambered, it can be really dangerous if not used properly.
Yeah.
And so the way we have an age limit for driving, we're 16 with a permit, and say, well, when I was 14, my dad let me drive and I could do it. You know, maybe, but you have to think in generalities at that point. Like, not every 18 to 21-year-old is the same.
Yeah.
And not everyone has the same education in firearms or background. And so, like we said a moment ago, you don't need the concealed carry license anymore. You just go and buy it with no education. And maybe just me getting older and being biased in that way, but I like the idea, because the question really isn't should it be 21, it's should it be any age? Well, the one at 18 or one at 16 or one at 22, like what?
Yeah.
21 is this arbitrary number that we came to when people lived to their 40s. And so
Right.
I am past my expiration right now. And so I don't, maybe I'm just dating myself here, but I feel it's good to have some kind of cutoff point, because we want to stay safe.
Correct.
We don't want it, you know, no one wants to see kids hurt. And then obviously if you don't have a limit, we could lose it in other fashions. So I think it's a necessary evil. And there are exceptions under 21, like you can be under 21 with a guardian or hunting or certain rifles. But the idea of someone under 21 in high school carrying around a firearm, especially what's going on nowadays, and we're trying to protect youth, and we're trying to protect our loved ones, it's daunting.
Yeah.
And it's, I can think of worse scenarios than having to be 21.
Yeah.
And I say that being over 21, so it doesn't apply to me.
Yeah.
I think that it's okay.
With going to have kids, I was the best dad in the world. And then I had 2 boys. Yeah. Yeah, completely get that.
So what's the best safety tip you could give a gun owner?
That's
Yeah,
probably my...
especially a young gun owner who is just trying to get into it.
Sure. That's probably my favorite question of the night so far, is practice. You know, I think everything we've talked about, every issue has come back to education. So, you know, like any other topic, whether you're a gamer, you like gaming, or you like sports, practice, learn the craft, learn your trade, learn how the firearm works, learn how to disassemble it, learn safety protocol, get to the range and learn how to use it responsibly, because everyone's heard of scenarios where, you know, some of the worst firearm incidents are ones where people weren't educated and then they were fearful with the power in their hand. Like, what are we talking about? Not knowing how to use it and not trusting themselves and not trusting the firearm. So learn your craft, you know.
Do you think there should be a schooling or a class needed to be taken? I know when you take a firearm safety course for a conceal,
even a hunting safety
Yeah,
course. Like you go through all types. You do black powder, handgun, and bow and arrow just to
Yeah.
get comfortable with it.
Yeah. Do you think there should be something required with the purchase of a firearm?
I'm always going to defer away from any answer that takes away from education. The concern I have is more a financial one. Not everyone can afford the same amount of education or level of education. And we've seen historically all groups of different types of people discriminated on those kind of factors. Like, well, you can't get the education, you can't have this right, but it's because I'm at a fiscal deficit. And so it's hard to, because and another thing is you may have grown up around firearms and you could be 21 years old now and have 21 years of real experience and know more than someone who didn't grow up and turned 21 in a day and read a textbook and did the course. And so it's hard to validate it that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
That's my concern with compelling requisite education.
Do you think there could be, or would it be a state program that you would be for? That it would be a free educational program?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not here to promote higher taxes for us, right? But if there was something that was open to all, and you said, okay, you have to do it, and we're going to make it available to you, that's awesome. I think education on all levels is great. So, yeah, if you make it accessible to all and you make it available to all, then I'm more comfortable mandating that requirement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'd want
Wonderful.
people to do it anyway.
Absolutely.
Yo,
All right.
his shirt, whiskey helps.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are we talking about? Shit.
So what we're going to is
So I don't know if you asked the question. You want to ask the question as far as being under the influence of marijuana and then using the firearm in a self-defense scenario. Something we talked about off camera was just substitute the marijuana for alcohol. You're not supposed to be in possession of a firearm under the influence of alcohol. So even to the extent that you may have subsequently legally used the firearm in self-defense, you could still be charged with having possessed a firearm while under the influence of alcohol. And another example to make it even simpler is if you are not allowed to have a firearm in the first place, if you're a convicted felon. So you already cannot have the firearm, but you used it in self-defense. Well, so you may not be liable for the homicide, but you can still be charged for having it in the first place. So
Right.
Okay.
having you again, it's they're independent issues, right? One doesn't wash away the other.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of what happens with the marijuana. It's like, well, whether you're under the influence or not, it's, okay, you used it, but you shouldn't have had it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why would we give you the benefit of then using it properly? You shouldn't have been there.
Right.
And that's the concept.
So if we put out a scenario, you would let us know as the firearm owner what to do legally.
Sure.
So me and Brooke were sitting around at the studio having a couple cocktails, and someone breaks
So
in.
where are we now?
We're in the Thin Red Line Tactical Studios,
Okay.
having a couple of drinks. We're doing a podcast, late night, comfy questions with Brooke. It's a good program. It's something else, but it goes well. And then someone tries to break in. But we've had a couple of cocktails. Brooke defends us and takes down the assailant in the living room.
Why'd you make that face? I could defend us.
Actually, I was admiring the fact that you were the one defending everyone as opposed to anyone else. So that was more me commending that you got up.
Yeah,
and
I'm not going to
everyone
break
else-
this glass.
Okay.
I've had this glass since '93. I'm not breaking it. So I'm protecting this. She's protecting us. Now, what should we do? What's the course of action there? The assailant's
After
down?
Brooke has successfully
Yeah.
defended everyone.
Yep.
So the first thing you would do is you would call your attorney.
Okay.
Okay. Even if you believe, even if it's concluded that Brooke did act reasonably in self-defense, my advice is always going to be, you do not talk to the police. You call your attorney first, then you call 911 because you have an obligation as a gun owner to call police if there's been an incident, and then you say nothing. You say nothing, you admit to nothing, you consent to nothing.
Yep.
And that goes beyond or even before the issues of whether alcohol was involved or not, because the reason why I had gone back and asked where were we was, were you somewhere that you were legally allowed to be around alcohol and firearms in your home versus if you were at the bar drinking, well, you shouldn't have a firearm at the bar. So that's why I asked that first. So you're in the home,
wonderful.
and that's great. You're in the home, you're being responsible gun owners, and you're indulging in your right to consume alcohol. I presume you're both over 21?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Just barely.
Well, it counts. 21 a day is legal.
Right.
So, and then you have this perpetrator who comes in, and you have a stand your ground, defense of self, others, property. So that's all good, but the police are not there to do the lawyer's job. They're not there to figure the case out. They're there to make arrests.
Yeah.
And just like we said a moment ago, even if you used the firearm lawfully, why open yourself up to incidental issues?
Yeah.
So I would say I'm ethically prohibited from saying anything that will allude to destroying evidence as far as where the glasses are, where the bottles are, where the Listerine is, things of that nature. But you call your attorney first. You call 911, and when the police get there, you say, call my lawyer. So I have my lawyer, and that's it. And I say that because it's not just in jest, but you have more rights afforded you at that moment when you have an attorney versus when you don't have an attorney.
Yeah.
It's not, I want a lawyer, I want my lawyer. That's right. There's a Sixth Amendment right to counsel that attaches, and that supersedes the Fifth. People don't know that. So, and then I would sit down and just wait, cooperate, and let the process take its course.
Yeah, I bet a lot of people don't know that difference. What is that Sixth Amendment?
Okay, so everyone thinks they know their Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. And people always ask, oh, they didn't read my rights, and that is your right to not self-incriminate. Mm-hmm. So you have a right when you're in custody and or under arrest to not be compelled to say something against your self-interests. But that can be waived under many circumstances. Passage of time, you voluntarily starting to talk, asking questions of your own, and you can just agree to waive those rights. Your Sixth Amendment right is your right to counsel. And what that says is when you are represented by an attorney, law enforcement cannot talk to you until and unless your attorney is present, and you as the accused cannot waive that right even if you try to without your attorney being present.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And so once you say, I have my lawyer, they know they cannot talk to you because anything you say is going to be suppressed, and you can't agree to waive that, they're done. That there's nothing to say, nothing to do. Take prints, do cuffs, but no talking.
Yeah, so I want my lawyer, not I want a lawyer.
Correct, because you saying you want a lawyer is your right to have an attorney appointed at some time down the road, but no one's representing you.
Yeah.
My lawyer means I have someone, there's a buffer. Do not pass go, do not let too much go.
Absolutely. And his name is Jack. That's who you call.
I would say if you carry a firearm, I've said this before on this program even, if you carry a firearm, know a criminal defense attorney. Have that attorney's name and number in your phone.
Brooke, nice to meet you.
You want that. It's insurance. Have that initial phone call so that you're not trying to find that person when you need them.
Yeah.
You have them. God bless you, never need them. That's great. But you don't want to be looking around for that information when you got to call 911.
Yeah.
Yeah, the best attorney to have is one that you never talk to.
I mean, you could talk to us.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Or you never need, I guess.
Right. That you never need. We're people too.
All right. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Listen, speaking of being people, you want to get a little personal? Pokemon cards. Tell me about it, Jack.
Okay.
Let them see it. Let them know. What? There it is.
That is Clobopus. So
Now, Jack, hold on a second because Brooke is actually an expert on Pokemon. Explain.
Can I see Clobopus? I don't think this one's that strong. It only says 80.
So, Jack, just so you know, you got a weak Clobopus. Which I've had some people on this program.
well, I will. So I mentioned before I'm a father of two. Mm-hmm. My children gave me this card.
All right.
And they asked that I put it in between the phone case and the phone. And I happily obliged. So
you should see if it's worth anything. You need an upgrade on your phone.
It is worth more than I would not sell it. It's not for sale.
So
my kids gave me that. So
I have a Dixie plate painted yellow, 2 googly eyes glued to it. It's priceless. So I know exactly what you're talking about there.
There you go. So, yeah. So that's I proudly share that with anyone who wants to see it. My
See
kids
that?
gave me that.
Attorneys.
Yep.
Attorneys, not just lawyers. You can talk to them. They're nice people. They got kids. Right. Yeah. All right. So, absolute wonderful night. I'd like to thank you, Jack. Thank you, Brooke, for everybody for coming down. Great night. Great information. If you want to know anything else, the entire podcast will be linked in the bio below. And you can check it out with thinredlinetactical.com. Thank you and have a great night.